There's just nothing like it that quite combines the sort of the physical challenge, the mental challenge, the psychological challenge and the emotional challenge of climbing.
It's choreography on the rock. You know, it's like dancing, but in 3 dimensions. You've got to work with the rock, how it's shaped. It's physical. I don't know, it's spiritual.
It's just that combination of every aspect of your body and being that gets challenged in climbing.
It's a terrific feeling when you get to the top. I'm Keith Lockwood, commonly called Noddy around the traps. I've been born and bred in Natimuk, born here in 1951. I've always been a recreational climber, a weekender. I've worked a 9-to-5 job and get out at weekends here. You know, it's 10 kilometres away from home. Can pop out for an afternoon, pop out for all day or an hour or two. Even if it's just a walk here, it's just magic.
My name's Louise Shepherd. I started climbing in 1978 and have been pretty much climbing ever since. I moved to Natimuk in 1983. My first meeting of Noddy, or my first acquaintance, was through Noddy's guidebook. He had produced an excellent little guidebook just called Arapiles back in the 70s, and it's still an iconic guide to the Mount. And a lot of my early climbs were repeats of Noddy's, you know, some of Noddy's early ascents, first ascents. Arapiles is a really special place for both climbing, for what we call recreational climbers, people who under their own steam come here, and also for guiding. I've climbed all over the world, you know, Yosemite Valley, Europe, New Zealand, South Africa, and in terms of guiding, there is just no place in the world that's like Arapiles.
Arapiles is so unregulated. There are no restrictions. You don't have to book ahead with permits and book a campsite and be accredited and qualified and so forth. You just, as Louise said, rock up and climb. And that's why it is so respected and loved around the world. The history of it was discovered by climbers in Melbourne. The Craddock family used to travel by train from Frankston to the city for work. And on the old Victorian Railways carriage there was a poster extolling the virtues of country life in Victoria. And one of the posters was a Mt Rock, where we are right here. So they decided to set off and discover Mt Rock. And back in the early 60s, it was a long drive from Melbourne, and they got through Horsham and then got to Natimuk and discovered a huge lump of rock next door to Mt Rock, which they didn't realise existed. So they discovered both mountains in the same trip, and then they took several trips up here before any climbing was done. They were quite daunted by it. From the early 1960s, it slowly built up until now it's extremely popular and climbers come from around the world.
I'm absolutely staggered at the changes in Natimuk over the years, over 3 decades of climbers moving into town.
It's changed it for the better. It's revolutionised a little sleepy country town. Real estate prices are booming. They're over $100,000 for a house now in Natimuk. But seriously, a lot of young people have moved into the town, bought houses, settled down, brought a wealth of talents, professional, artistic, climbing, you name it.
Like Nottie said, real estate is booming, but it's also much more affordable than buying a house in Sydney or Melbourne or even a big country centre. So that's part of the reason, because the real estate is quite moderate, part of the reason why climbers still continue to move here and make a lifestyle for themselves.
We have a fringe festival coming up next month, and there's a huge range of talent in Natimuk that we can draw on for a festival of that kind. It hasn't always been easy. There's been a bit of conservative resistance perhaps, but I think we were blessed first of all by the milk bar proprietors, the Delaney's. They looked after penniless climbers very well. They were remarkable. They were a bridge between the climbers and the locals, and there were other people in Natimuk who formed a sympathetic bridge. In the very early days there was a bit of antagonism. There was one young climber who'd come up from Melbourne and go into the pub, this is in the 60s, and he'd pick a fight by painting his shoes green. Now in the 60s that was fairly provocative in a conservative country pub. Of course he got into a bit of a Barney and they sorted things out. The climbers originally were referred to as mountain goats or goats by the locals in a fairly disparaging way, but now the climbers have embraced the term and we are all goats. There's an art gallery in Natimuk called the Goat Gallery, and there's a goat fest, and every second thing is related to the goats.
It's essential that we maintain a balance at Arapiles between the needs of the cultural needs of climbers to be able to camp there and climb there, hang out there, and looking after Arapiles. It's changed since the 60s, when there were half a dozen climbers a year. Now we have anywhere between maybe 50, 60,000, perhaps up to 80,000 visitor days per year. There's always about 1,000 people camping at Arapiles at Easter. So it will be a matter of trying to balance the needs of climbers and the whole culture of climbing with the natural aspect of Arapiles.
I think if we can maintain the magic of this place, it will continue to shed that magic to generations to come. And I think we're all in a position where we have to safeguard its qualities for our children and grandchildren, because it is so special, and I think it can be loved to death. There's a tremendous lot of people coming here all the time. We're both on the State Park Advisory Committee, and we hopefully will be good stewards for the future.